Hello world, this is going to be part one of a series which I intend to continue at various different points, just showing you everything that's in my record collection. Some of the stuff you'll have seen before, some of it you won't have done. It's going to be a fair few because I've got loads and loads of records. I've got 2 shelves full of them, plus I've got loads of record cases full of random releases and stuff like that, as well as all my Beatles stuff and everything, which has been seen before on YouTube but deserves to be seen again simply because of the reissues and stuff like that. But anyway, let's get on. This is A and B of what's on my main record shelf. So like when I think, oh, I want to play a record, that's the shelf I tend to go to. So go through these quickly. That is Porgy and Bess, being a placeholder there so that I know where to put my records so you can see them. That's great, that album. It's Decca. It's conducted by Lauren Marcel and the Cleveland Orchestra and Chorus, and it's by far the best version of Porgy and Bess that I've heard. You know, really, really good, and it's a triple album. It's the whole opera. Brilliant, can't be beaten. It's on Apple Music, so you can hear that. It's fantastic. Alright, so ABBA, Waterloo, ABBA, Greatest Hits. You've seen all of these before. ABBA Arrival, that's the original. This is the double album, half-speed mastered, umpteen reissue in vinyl over and over again that ABBA seem to be doing at the moment. This is an Italian version of the album, single sleeve. This is the UK, slightly different gatefold sleeve there, and a better pressing, has to be said. Voulez-Vous. This is the 12-inch of Voulez-Vous promo copy. Found that on eBay many years ago. Greatest Hits Volume 2. 2 copies of Super Trooper. Both originals. Both have the gift of music and the leaflets in there to win the Saab. This is The Visitors. ABBA the singles, the first 10 years. It's great, but it's also very sad. And if you want an ABBA compilation, I really wouldn't go for that one, simply because there's been a few cuts in there, particularly The Name of the Game, which really doesn't want its second verse cut out. ABBA Voyage, obviously. Agneta Feltskog, Elva Kvinnor i ett hus. Her best solo album, I think, until you get up to about 2013's A album, and My Colouring Book, which was I think 2004, something like that. But yeah, that's her best. Don't have those other ones on vinyl, I've got them on CD. This Wrap Your Arms Around Me, released after Frida's Something's Going On album, and you know, Polar Music trying to make sure that you know, ABBA weren't splitting up, but also Agneta has to have one if Frida gets one, and it's a bit rubbish. Frida and Sam, brilliant, beautiful. This was the solo album that Agneta's could have been. Frida's Something That's Going On. It's absolutely brilliant as a solo album, absolutely amazing and as good as anything that ABBA ever did. And then Frida's Shine, really not as good as anything that ABBA ever did. Aha, Scoundrel Days, I'm afraid that's the only Aha album I've got in my collection. I used to have them all on cassette. I think I've got Hunting High and Low on CD, the one that's got Take On Me and the Sun Always Shines on TV on it. This one is famous for having Cry Wolf on it and The Swing of Things. Maybe Maybe, which is a very irritating song that was released as a single. That was their second album, and I loved that album, and again I loved Aha and played them to death during the 80s. Then, as you do, you forget about them. Benny Anderson's piano album, that's very nice. I think there's a volume 2 of that. This is the original copy of Dirt Wears White Socks. There was a CBS Nice Price reissue of that with a different cover and a very slightly different track listing on it, because CBS had to buy up. This is Do It Records. This is, and I suppose when Adam signed to CBS and became famous, obviously people wanted to get this album, and it really wasn't particularly easily available album, and so CBS obviously repackaged it, but it's best in that format. This is a reissue of Kings of the Wild Frontier. This is the original. Apart from the sort of textured stripe across his nose here, the quality of the photograph that they've used on the reissue is really poor, you know, and if you put the two side by side, it really doesn't give Photoshop a very good sort of advert, really. This is an original Prince Charming. I love the inside of this, the gatefold inside. But yeah, it looked fantastic. Alright, Friend or Foe, Adam's first solo album, and that's where my Adam and the Ants collection stops. I used to have Strip, don't know where that is now. All About Eve. This record is a bit sad. It was released back in the day when CDs were just about becoming affordable for a lot of people, but for those of you who couldn't afford CDs, there was always cassettes. Cassettes had a big revival in the 1980s, and you know, even record companies were trying to use better tape formations and HX Pros and chrome cassettes and that sort of thing, and putting bonus tracks on the cassettes and the CDs, because they wanted to try and convince everybody that vinyl was dead. So the vinyl records were paper thin and they didn't have half the songs on them that the CDs had on them. And obviously, because you know, a lot of the world was buying cassettes at the time, it made sense as well to put the bonus tracks on the cassette and, you know, try and kill off the vinyl LP, and they never did, because actually CDs have gone the way of the dinosaur, because everything's online now, and cassettes have gone the way of the dinosaur because cassettes, and you know, they really don't last and stand the test of time. Shut up, Mark. Big in Japan, that's in the wrong box. Alphaville, that is. Do like Alphaville. It's a shame that they had two songs. One was Forever Young, but wasn't the Bob Dylan, Joan Baez thing, but was brilliant. And Big in Japan, which was also brilliant. And then they just seem to have gone, you know, the way of the dumper. And they certainly were not, you know, big anywhere after about 1984 would this have come out. But yeah, that was a good song by Alphaville there, but just a shame that yeah, they couldn't really follow it up. Mark Almond, Enchanted. I like that album, but it's not my favourite Mark Almond album. This is Vermin in Ermine, slightly out of place. But yeah, I like Vermin in Ermine, but not my favourite Mark Almond album. This is my favourite Mark Almond album. This is Stories of Johnny, and I think I put Love and Little White Lies on my YouTube channel as a needle drop. So you'll be able to hear that. But that's a brilliant album. Stories of Johnny. Absolutely brilliant. From about 1985, I think. This is a lovely Mark Almond album as well. Very, very recent. This one is Shadows and Reflections. I believe that those are Northern Soul classics, but I couldn't really tell you on there. Arcadia, So Red the Rose. This is the ill-fated bits where Duran Duran split into two for 1985 to do two sort of different projects, which was supposedly going to be like a break for them and to explore their sort of different creative what's-its or whatever. But it just meant that by the time that we got to Live Aid, they hadn't played together as a group for ages, and Simon Le Bon let out that awful squawky note, which there is no excuse for, Simon. I'm very sorry to tell you that, to be the one to tell you. But yeah, we love Duran Duran, at least their 80s output. I'm not really hot on anything after. I think they had an album in the 90s that was quite good, but then, you know, that was it. Really, the last hurrah for them, really. Joan Armour Trading, Whatever's For Us. This is the one that she made with Pam Nestor. The first album. It's a shame about Pam Nestor. A&M wanted Joan Armour Trading and didn't want Pam Nestor, which was a shame, because Pam Nestor was the one that had the guts and the get out there personality and everything that was getting them gigs and stuff, whereas Joan just wanted to play and sing, as it were, and not really, just too shy to do all the other stuff. But yeah, it was Joan Armour Trading that they picked on, and Joan's first album, which I'm sitting here trying to remember the title of, and I've totally forgotten it. Something like Into the Night or something like that. Totally forgotten it. Don't even quote me on saying that. Alright, but yeah, this is the one that she is best known for in the mid-70s. Joan Armour Trading. So it's her second proper solo album. And it's the one that's got Love and Affection on it, but don't just go for it because it's got Love and Affection on it. It's got fantastic numbers. Down to Zero, Save Me is beautiful, Tall in the Saddle is fantastic, and she managed to follow that up with 1977's equally good. Got two copies of this one which plays quite nicely, and this one is a reissue. It's $5.99 from W.H. Smith's. No record in 1979 cost $5.99. So this is obviously an 80s reissue of the Show Some Emotion album from 77. Lovely album. Again, I find it very difficult to choose between Joan Armour Trading and Show Some Emotion. And then, of course, you've got Me, Myself, I, which makes it even harder to choose. I have Stepping Out here, which was up until very recently, it was the only live album that she'd ever put out. And then, there are gaps in my Joan Armour Trading collection. Some of them I've got on CD, but there are gaps, as there are in lots of these things here. So this one here, there are albums in between. There's Not Me, Myself, I, Walk Under Ladders, for example, which I haven't got. And this one here, The Key, it's got Drop the Pilot on it, and it's got I Love It When You Call Me Names as a sort of quite a long extended version of that on there. But I don't really rate that album as much as I rate these three. Me, Myself, I, Show Some Emotion, whatever. Then there are gaps again, but this is Sleight of Hand, and this is my absolute favourite. If I had to go on a desert island and was only allowed to take one Joan Armour Trading album with me, it would be that one. It's beautiful. Sleight of Hand from 1986. Really, really excellent guitar playing on it, really excellent singing, and it takes me to a very, very warm and comfortable space where, I could, quite easily block out, whatever is going on in life and just sort of, particularly, there's something about hearing it at Christmas which soothes me, and this one here, just in those sort of dark winter nights, is a real soother, and I love it. It's absolutely gorgeous. This one's as good, The Shouting Stage. And then massive, massive, massive gap. As I say, I've got quite a few Joan Armour Trading CDs from certainly the early 90s, and I've also obviously got This Charming Life, which is fantastic, and Into the Blues as well. But then I got this not too far away on vinyl, just because it was on vinyl, 2018. It's a nice album, it's a great album. I'm so grateful that they gave away a download code, and also that you can hear it on Apple Music, because this came to me in the post damaged on side 2, and you know, sometimes life gets a little bit too short, and it was one of those where I never sent it back, and if I had sent it back, I think I would have got the same fault on it as well. It's only the last couple of minutes of side 2, but it's put me off from playing that album. Don't get me started on damaged albums, but there we go. Alright, so now we're on the B's. Burt Bacharach, Portrait in Music. That's just an instrumental album. It is conducted and produced by Burt Bacharach, so it's not like one of those cheap top of the pop specials. Yep, I better hurry up. Joan Baez, Farewell Angelina. This is an original 1960s copy in mono. Is it in mono? I believe so, because otherwise it would say stereo. Does it say stereo? No, it is mono. Look, it actually, you know, apart from, you know, Decca saying, you know, records whose labels say they're stereo are stereo, this one, its label says it's mono, and it's an original. Farewell Angelina, I'll sort that out in a minute. This is lovely. Noel, again, lovely Christmas album, and also a nice original 1960s copy. This is One Day at a Time. This is about 1970, 71, about that time, and she was just moving away from being the little songstrel playing the guitar and singing in a shrieky voice. Here her voice is mellowing out a little bit, becoming much fuller and richer. I don't like shrieky voices. They tend to make vinyl grooves really suffer. But yeah, that's quite nice, and you know, you're getting more instruments there as well, which is quite nice. It's always quite nice. This is Greatest Hits when she left Vanguard, and their subsidiary albums, whatever. They did a collection of her greatest hits with them. Right. This is Diamonds and Rust, the first album that she made, I believe, with A&M, and it's absolutely fantastic, and sounds great on vinyl. I've got a CD reissue of that, a remastered thing that's got all of her albums with A&M on them, and it's not a patch on that. Alright, so this is the Best of Joan C. Baez, sort of a few years later, after, because there were albums in between. Again, I've got gaps, but that's A&M best of, so not the same track listing as the other greatest album. This is great, From Every Stage, brilliant. One of the best live albums I've ever heard from anyone. That is brilliant. This is really, really good. From 1976. Okay. Chet Baker Sings, because he does. This is when record players need a backwards thing. I bought this because it's got I Fall in Love Too Easily on it, not realising that I Fall in Love Too Easily, which sounds brilliant and it's beautiful and everything, but that every other song was, you know, in the same kind of template, and every song is either lento or andante, and no faster than that. There's no variety on there at all. It's just Chet Baker crooning, and really, I'd much rather Chet Baker didn't croon. I'd much rather, you know, feel a little bit more oomph and variety or whatever. But he had a hard life, bless him. Right, this is the band. I've got 2 issues of that. This one is on the green Capital label. This one is on the rainbow Capital label. I'm looking for a sold in the UK. There isn't one on this one. So this is a post 1969 issue, because after 1969 they weren't allowed to put that on there. And I'm looking here on this one as well, and no, there isn't sold in the UK, but I think this one, because it's got the better sort of textured cover, I think would have been the original. This one not too sure afterwards, but it's just a plain laminated sleeve, and you know, none of the nice sort of lovely textures of this one. The bangles, different lights, and then sadly in 1988 they had to go and follow it up with Everything, which I enjoyed at the time, but playing it again many years later, it's not a patch on a different light. You know, apart from the singles, Walk Like an Egyptian, Manic Monday, and If She Knew What She Wants on this first album. Well, it's not a first album, but it's certainly the one that we got to know the Bangles by. There was one before that, but yeah, this one is a bit disappointing, despite having Eternal Flame on it. Don't ask me why I got this album, but I did. The Bay City Rollers, and doesn't have any of their famous hits on there. I think they were trying to prove themselves that they could write their own songs and stuff. And yeah, James Bay, Chaos and the Calm. The Beach Boys, Party. That's a weird album. You know, just the Beach Boys sound like they've gone into someone's house. You know, there's a lot of, you know, just a lot of chatter and room noise and stuff like that, and every so often the Beach Boys would kind of start strumming a guitar or whatever, and people would join in and what have you, and it's supposed to be like a really relaxed thing and what have you. And yeah, you wouldn't get away with it nowadays. It just about works. There is a point to me saying that. This is the Beach Boys, the best of the Beach Boys. Capitol were not happy with Pet Sounds. Hence, they didn't even release a stereo version of it at the time. And so they deliberately issued this one to try and compete with it. And they've got the Sloop John B and God Only Knows from Pet Sounds, because I think those were the 2 popular ones. But yeah, they really were not happy with Pet Sounds, and it's a shame because, you know, back in the day, Pet Sounds did not get the kind of sort of oomph that it needed to sell in America. I think it did better over in the UK, and I think that was because the Beatles were there at one of the first playings of it, one of the first unveilings of it, and they loved it because there'd been a little bit of competition going on. You know, the Beatles would release Revolver, so the Beach Boys, you know, issued Pet Sounds kind of thing. And so because the Beach Boys did Pet Sounds, then that meant that the Beatles had to do Sgt. Pepper because that was fantastic and whatever. And yeah, because then, you know, the Beach Boys did really kind of go down I think Brian Wilson's mental health took a massive sort of nosedive for the worst. And sadly, you know, these, which were meant to be the follow-up, like the Smiley Smile and Smile, which I think were from, you know, the both the sessions and stuff. But yeah, apart from Good Vibrations, there's nothing on there that really warrants writing home about. There's a song about them eating vegetables, I think. Most peculiar. Belle and Sebastian, How to Solve Our Human Problems, triple album set. It's great. It's also on Apple Music, but yeah, this is a beautiful album and I love it. I've got it on display in my lounge, and it's just come down for this, but this is a brilliant album. Love it. I'm going to have to really hurry up, I've got 4 minutes. Right, Ashley got me this for my birthday one year, Something American by Judy Bird. The only blancmange on vinyl that I have is Mange 2, but I used to have the other 2 albums, Happy Families and Believe You Me. This is Boombox, which is hip hop from 79 to 82. Put some of that on my channel. The Boomtown Rats, The Fine Art of Surfacing, contains I Don't Like Mondays, but sadly I don't like the rest of that album. But I do like Mondo Bongo, which is the other Boomtown Rats album that I have. Think it's much better. Yeah, really love that one. Few David Bowies, again not as much David Bowie as I should have. Only 3 albums here. Ziggy Stardust, obviously, Hunky Dory and Aladdin Sane. All of which are brilliant, but obviously my favourite is Ziggy Stardust, just because David Bowie. Sound of Bread, their 20 finest songs, brilliant. Age of Consent by Bronski Beat, very good. Jeff Buckley, Grace, that's a reissue from the noughties. Retrospective by Buffalo Springfield. I'm really having to hurry up here. My Jake Bugs, which I've shown you before. Jake Bug. The second album, whose title I've forgotten. And it doesn't say it on there either. And then on my one, which is great, but sadly he doesn't like it, Hearts That Strain and Saturday Night, Sunday Morning. And this is where I need to stop here. Not quite got to the end of the bees, but I will be back and I will be showing you some more very soon. Alright, thank you very much for watching. Okay world, I'm aware that there were some issues there with the lighting. It's kind of tended to get a bit reflection-y, and also that my pile of records got too big, and so some of those last few records were slightly out of shot, but I will try and rectify that the next time round. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll be back with the rest of the bees and more of my collection very, very shortly. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, share if you dare, consider a thanks, and you'll be my best friend forever. Alright, see you later. Bye.